The foot is the only part of your body that makes contact with the ground with running, but when it comes to strengthening, the foot is commonly overlooked. In this video, we'll talk about the anatomy of the foot, biomechanics during running, and then some strengthening exercises every runner should be doing. When most runners think about the foot, it's usually pretty simplistic, but if you really look at the anatomy of the foot, you'll see that there's a lot going on. There's 26 different bones, there's 33 different joints, and then there's a bunch of muscles, ligaments, and tendons that all attach onto the foot. And specifically, we're going to look at the small supportive muscles in the foot, which there's about 11 of them. And together these muscles help support the dome of the foot, which includes the medial arch. And these muscles are important because there are a lot of demands on the foot when we run. On one hand, the foot needs to be mobile because as you make contact with the ground, it needs to be able to pronate to spread out the impact forces with each step. But on the other hand, the foot needs to be rigid during the push-off phase to be able to accelerate ourselves forward with each step, meaning that the muscles need to be able to contract quickly to lock out the foot, so that way we can efficiently transfer the load generated from the calf into the ground for the next step. And all of this happens within a blink of an eye. So how do you test how strong these small muscles in the foot actually are? One way is to begin in short foot, which means that we want to lift up that inside arch and keep the heel in neutral, then extend all the toes up and then gently let them rest on the ground. Then you're going to want to hold a single leg stance for 30 seconds. So if you can't hold a single leg stance for 30 seconds on each side, you see a decrease on that inside arch, or if you see those muscles of the calf and shin, which typically looks like clawing of the toes when you're performing the exercise, then it's likely that you have some weakness of these small muscles in the foot. Which obviously leads us into strengthening exercises for these small muscles. And the way the exercise section is divided is that there's going to be 3 isolation exercises to really focus on building up strength of those small muscles, and then 2 more functional exercises, which is what everyone should progress to and maintain doing. Short foot is one of the starting exercises to begin learning how to activate those small intrinsic muscles in the foot, with the goal being to lift up the arch on the inside part of the foot and minimize the amount of clawing in the toes while you do this. Since the movement can be a little challenging to get used to, starting in a seated position can be helpful to decrease the load. Here you want to pull the big toe towards the heel, which raises the dome of the foot. Then once able to contract the foot muscles while seated, the next progression is to do the same thing while standing. With the additional load, this is where it's common to see those toes gripping the ground, so that's something to pay attention to. For an additional challenge to the short foot exercise while standing, you can start to rotate your body, which will just increase the load and the challenge on the foot. You can also use a weight and pass it from side to side, which will just increase the external load, making the exercise a little bit more challenging to maintain that short foot position. Another exercise is an isometric hold off of a stair. This is actually a little bit more simple exercise than short foot, so it's a great option to start loading the foot while starting to work on that motor control. Begin with the ball of the foot on the edge of a step, and then hold this position so the foot is parallel with the ground for around 30 to 60 seconds. To progress the difficulty of the exercise, slide the foot further off the step so it's more of the toes on the edge, and then again hold this position. Additionally, you can start to load the muscles at different angles. So instead of the foot parallel to the ground, which would mimic the foot during mid-stance of running, you can lift up the heel, which mimics the foot during the push-off phase of running. And of course, again, another variation is to add external load like a backpack or a weight, just to increase the challenge of the hold with this exercise. Surprisingly, when looking at exercises that create the most muscle activation of these small muscles in the foot, the standing leg swing performs better than other common foot strengthening exercises. To perform, start in a single leg stance with a hand on the wall for balance, and then while trying to maintain that inside arch, swing the leg from front to back. Since we've talked about the arches of the foot creating a dome, you can also swing in a variety of different planes to challenge the foot, so going from side to side and diagonal are other good options. While the previous exercises are typically thought of more as isolation exercises, more functional exercises might be preferred for runners who are healthy, just looking to improve the performance and strength of the foot. This is where an exercise like toe walking comes in, and for these you want to walk both forwards and backwards. Walking forwards mimics the push-off phase of running and works on strength with the toes extended, while walking backwards increases the load on the muscles of the foot because the weight is over the heel with each step backwards. The final exercise are calf raises to integrate strengthening of the foot, ankle, and calf muscles. And really this is an exercise that every runner should be doing regularly to reduce the risk of developing things like plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendinopathy. Performing the heel raises on a slant board helps to increase the range of motion at the ankle. And again, it is important to perform these exercises slowly to allow the tissues to adapt to the load. So the goal is to perform each rep over 6 to 8 seconds. That's 3 to 4 seconds on the concentric raise, and then 3 to 4 seconds on the eccentric lower. Additionally, when you're performing the heel raises, you want to make sure that you're lifting straight up towards the ceiling instead of leaning forward. This increases the load on the plantar fascia and the calf muscles. And then obviously adding additional load will increase the challenge on the muscles in the fascia. So hopefully this video on foot strengthening was helpful. If you want to support the channel, go ahead and subscribe over here for more running tips. And YouTube thinks you should watch this video next.